Aries 11. The president of a country. To become president, you need to focus on one thing and one thing alone. It's not okay to be of two minds. If you're going to be president, you need to really focus on becoming president. And that has a lot to do with what qualities you project. And you have to project presidential qualities. You have to subsume all the others. You have to sacrifice certain aspects of your personality and your whims and fancies because they don't support that ambition. If your purpose in life is to be that level of leader and substantially influence a large group of people, you can't indulge yourself awfully much. You have to really keep your eyes on the prize. And this applies not only in the sense of the president of a country, it applies to any of us who have a leadership role in the community. And we have to put aside what we like sometimes. It's all to do with self-sacrifice to take on this societal function of leadership. Because the needs of a society for a leader are evident. We can't actually have a community without a leader. It might work reasonably well in peacetime, and heaven alone knows it's not worked very well at the moment. But there are times of trouble, and mostly, really, in the whole of our history, times are troubled. It's a major feature of our species history is that we're a troubled lot. And so a leader is almost always thrown up. And although the leader can be a woman, typically the women who have taken positions of power, like Indira Gandhi, like Margaret Thatcher, and other examples, they actually behave rather much like a masculine force. The job of leadership, it tends to be I know this, I will do that, follow me, I know what I'm about. Very masculine kind of attitude to life. And the ego tends to be in high relief. Well, as we all know, when you get a little bit too egotistical, the people around you will want to bring you down. Not all of them. Some of them will identify with your ego proclamation and have their own ego invested in your ability to be the leader. But usually about half of them, the other half, they don't want that. And so there's this sense of putting yourself in harm's way. When you raise your head a little bit above the pack, that extra high relief gets a lot of attention, much of which is negative. Much is positive, supportive, but much is negative and attacking. And the leader has to proclaim social values. That's what will give rise to the creation of a leader. In a democracy, that's certainly true. And so the leader has to tune in to what the community wants and become the best example of that series of qualities in order to become elected. And those qualities are not, shall we say, real. They're not true personal qualities. They're ideals. We hope for, we yearn for a good leader who is strong and wise and somewhat compassionate perhaps and strategic and has our interests at heart. That's what we want for a leader. So we put all of these spiritual qualities, these exemplary ways of being a human being, onto the president. And the president is only a person. Some of them are distinctly dysfunctional people. And the certainty is that the individual cannot live up to the ideal. And there's a lot of criticism. Anything at all that can be used to attack the president will be used So if you put yourself in a position of leadership, yeah, you're not going to be attacked with guns and aeroplanes and bombs and things, but you will be attacked with words and gossip and strategies that go on secretly behind your back. That always happens. And even a face-to-face confrontation in the middle of the group, just to see if you're strong enough to deal with the questions and the challenges, that always happens too. So the position of leadership is very demanding indeed, and it's not sustainable. It's only ever temporary. Even in some third world countries where leaders go on and on and on against the will of the general population, eventually they get brought down, eventually. And even if they don't get brought down quickly, they'll lose their influence on the world stage, because we want our leaders to be ideals, and yet they are only realistic. That discrepancy between our fantasy about what a leader should be and the truth, which is what a leader is and certainly must be, that discrepancy gives rise to the certainty that the position will only last for a short while. And all sorts of inappropriate reasons are brought to bear as to why we should bring a president down, such as sexual infidelity, for example. What does it matter? You know, when Clinton was in power, he was doing a pretty good job and had a minor sexual adventure, which was thought to be naughty, and the world leader was taken out of play. Where's the sense in that? There is no sense in it. It's an emotional response from the people who really yearn for someone who can do the job of being a human being well, in fact, perfectly. And it's not possible. So if you're in the position of leadership, be aware that all of your behaviors will be subject to inspection. And you might want to think about whether you want the job in the first place, because it's not pleasant. I've had that social role for a little while, and it just didn't suit me very well. I found it too much of it was too untrue, really. One has to pretend to be perfect in order to sustain the position of leadership. And that pretense is very destructive on the level of soul, I think. But if you do want to take on the immensely growthful role as a leader, be aware that there are stages to go through, and it begins with real clear purpose. You have to want that and only that for a while until you get in position. And then you're in a position where you have to manage the unmanageable and be subjected to ardent criticism for everything you do. And then in the end, if you're a really impactful leader, you will be scapegoated. In some ways, the measure of a leader's impact is the extent to which they were scapegoated. That's the formula. I don't know many people that have escaped that. And we think of John Lennon, who was a leader. We think of Mahatma Gandhi, who was a leader. We're thinking of Martin Luther King, who was a leader. We can think of Christ. And all of these major leaders in our history ended up scapegoated on a very serious level indeed. They were all killed. And you may be able to avoid being killed, but there will be people who will bring you down, and eventually you will be brought down. So if you enter the leadership field, be aware that it's a temporary phenomenon and it will end in tears. However, it's worth it. If it's in your destiny, shall we say, to take on that role for a while, then do so. And just understand it to be a challenge. How long can you hold yourself to be an exemplary person? Can you behave really well for a very long time and put aside all other concerns and emotions and so on? Can you do that? Because if you can, it's the job for you. But if you can't, well, think again.